The rain was relentless, hammering the New York City pavement as I sprinted toward the subway, my sneakers splashing through puddles. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. Nothing could be more urgent than escaping this downpour on my 25th birthday. Then I saw him, standing under a flickering street lamp, holding a small, wrapped box that stopped me dead in my tracks. Elliot Harper, my high school nemesis, the guy who'd made my teenage years a living hell, was here, on my birthday, looking at me like he'd been waiting. His dark hair clung to his forehead, soaked from the rain, and his hazel eyes held something I couldn't place: regret. Maybe. Or something softer. I hadn't seen him in 7 years. Not since graduation, when we'd screamed at each other in the school parking lot, vowing never to cross paths again. "Why are you here?" I demanded, my voice barely audible over the storm. My heart pounded, not just from the run, but from the sheer shock of seeing him. Elliot didn't flinch, just stepped closer, the gift in his hands trembling slightly. "It's your birthday, Caleb," he said, his voice low, almost drowned by the rain. I wanted to give you this." I stared at the box, wrapped in simple blue paper, tied with a thin ribbon. My mind raced back to high school Elliot's taunts, the way he'd outshined me in every debate club meeting, the cruel pranks that had left me humiliated. He'd been the golden boy, the quarterback with a perfect smile, while I was the quiet kid with glasses, always one step behind. We'd hated each other, or so I thought. So why was he here, looking at me like I was the only person in the city? "Take it," he urged, holding the box out. "Please." I grabbed it, more out of instinct than want, my fingers brushing his. The contact sent a jolt through me, like static electricity, and I pulled back, clutching the box to my chest. "This doesn't make us friends," I snapped, but my voice wavered. "I know," he said, and for a moment, his eyes softened, like he was seeing something in me he'd never noticed before. "Just open it later. Okay." I didn't wait for him to say more. I turned and bolted for the subway, my heart a mess of anger and something else I couldn't name. Back in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, I tore open the box, expecting some kind of jokier reminder of our old rivalry. Instead, I found a leather-bound journal, the kind I'd always wanted in high school but could never afford. Tucked inside was a note in Elliot's messy scrawl: "I was wrong about you, Caleb. I'm sorry. Happy birthday." I sat on my couch, staring at the journal, my fingers tracing the soft leather. Why now? Why this? I'd spent years burying the pain of those high school days, convincing myself I'd moved on. But that night, as I lay in bed, Elliot's face kept creeping into my mind, his wet hair, his hesitant smile, the way his voice had cracked when he said my name. And when I finally drifted off, I dreamed of kissing him, soft and slow, under that same street lamp in the rain. The dream was so vivid I woke up gasping, my heart racing like I'd run a marathon. I told myself it was nothing, just a fluke. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that. Every time I closed my eyes, there he was, pulling me closer, his lips brushing mine. I was losing my mind. This was Elliot Harper, the guy I'd sworn to hate forever. So why couldn't I stop dreaming about him? The journal sat on my nightstand, unopened since that first night. I was too afraid to write in it, too afraid to face whatever it meant. But I couldn't throw it away, either. It was a tether to him, to that moment in the rain, and I didn't know how to let it go. The next morning, I was still reeling when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Elliot. Can we talk?" My thumb hovered over the reply button, torn between deleting it and typing something back. I didn't know what he wanted, or why he'd reappeared after all these years. But one thing was clear: Elliot Harper wasn't done with me yet. I spent the day distracted, my mind replaying that moment under the street lamp. I worked as a graphic designer for a small firm in Manhattan, and my cubicle was a mess of sketches and coffee cups. My coworker, Mia, noticed my mood immediately. "You okay, Caleb?" she asked, leaning over the partition. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Something like that," I muttered, avoiding her eyes. I couldn't tell her about Elliot. Not yet. How do you explain that your old enemy showed up with a gift that's rewriting your entire history? By evening, I was back in my apartment, staring at Elliot's text. I typed a dozen replies and deleted them all. Finally, I settled on, "Why now, Elliot?" His response came almost instantly, "Because I can't stop thinking about you." My breath caught. This wasn't the Elliot I knew, the arrogant, untouchable jock who'd made my life miserable. This was someone else. Someone who was breaking through every wall I'd built. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete the message either. Instead, I opened the journal, my hand shaking, and wrote one word: "Why?" That night, the dreams came again, more intense than before. Elliot's hands on my face, his breath warm against my skin, the rain falling around us. I woke up with my heart pounding, the journal still open on my lap. I didn't know what was happening to me, but one thing was certain: Elliot Harper had just turned my world upside down, and I wasn't sure I could ever go back. The next week was a blur of restless nights and unanswered questions. Every time I closed my eyes, Elliot was there, his hazel eyes piercing through the haze of my dreams. I'd wake up clutching my pillow, my heart racing, torn between wanting to scream at him and wanting to pull him closer. I avoided his texts, but they kept coming short. Tentative messages that felt like pebbles thrown at my window. "Caleb, can we meet? I owe you an explanation. I'm not that guy anymore." Each one chipped away at my resolve, but I wasn't ready to face him. Not when my dreams were betraying me, turning hate into something dangerously close to longing. On Friday, I caved. I was at a coffee shop in Williamsburg, sketching in the journal Elliot had given me, when I saw him through the window. He was across the street, talking to a street vendor, his laugh carrying over the noise of the city. My stomach twisted. He looked differentless, like the untouchable quarterback, and more like someone carrying a weight he couldn't shake. Before I could stop myself, I texted him, "I'm at Bean and Brew. If you want to talk, come now." My hands shook as I hit send, and 10 minutes later, he was there, sliding into the seat across from me. "Caleb," he started, his voice softer than I remembered. "Thanks for this." "Don't thank me yet," I said, my tone sharper than I meant. "What do you want, Elliot? Why are you doing this?" He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know where to start," he admitted. "I've been trying to figure that out for 7 years. 7 years. I scoffed. "You didn't care about me 7 years ago. You made my life hell." His face fell, and for the first time, I saw something like shame in his eyes. "I know," he said. "I was a jerk. Worse than that. I was scared, Caleb. Scared of a lot of things. And I took it out on you." "Scared?" I repeated, incredulous. "You were the golden boy. What did you have to be scared of?" He looked down at his hands, twisting a napkin between his fingers. Myself, he said quietly. Who I was. Who I wanted to be. The words hung between us, heavy and unfinished. I wanted to push, to demand answers, but something in his voice stopped me. Instead, I asked, why the journal? He met my eyes, and the vulnerability there hit me like a punch. Because I remembered how much you loved writing in high school. You'd always have that beat-up notebook, scribbling during lunch. I thought, maybe it could be a start. A way to say I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. The Elliot I knew didn't apologize. He didn't notice things like my old notebook. But this Elliot, the one sitting across from me, was different. Older, quieter, carrying a weight I didn't understand. I don't get it, I said finally. You hated me. Why do you care now? I didn't hate you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I envied you. You were so sure of yourself. Even when I made things hard. You were out. Proud. Even when it wasn't easy. I wasn't. The air left my lungs. Elliot Harper, the guy who'd called me names, who'd tripped me in the halls, was telling me he'd been jealous. That he'd been hiding something. My mind reeled, piecing together fragments of memories, his lingering looks in debate club, the way he'd always find me in a crowd, even if it was just to taunt me. Elliot, I said, my voice unsteady. Are you saying what I think you're saying? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. I'm saying I was wrong, he said, and I'm trying to make it right. I pulled my hand back, my heart pounding. This doesn't fix anything, I said, but the words felt hollow. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the pain, but his eyes were unraveling me. I know, he said, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. We sat in silence for a long time, the hum of the coffee shop filling the space between us. I didn't know what to believe, but one thing was clear. Elliot wasn't the enemy I'd built him up to be. And that scared me more than anything. That night, the dreams were different. Instead of rain and street lamps, we were in a quiet park, sitting on a bench, his hand brushing mine. When I woke, I didn't push the image away. I let it linger. And for the first time, I wondered what it would be like to let him in. The dreams didn't stop, but they evolved. Now, it wasn't just stolen kisses in the Rhine, it was Elliot and me, walking through Central Park, laughing over nothing, his hand grazing mine like it belonged there. Each morning, I woke with a pang of guilt, like I was betraying the version of myself who'd sworn to hate him. But the truth was, I didn't hate him anymore. I wasn't sure I ever really had. We started texting more. Small things at first, memes. Random comments about New York's unpredictable weather. But soon, it was deeper. He'd ask about my day, my art, my life, and I'd find myself answering, letting him in bit by bit. It felt dangerous, like walking a tightrope without a net. But I couldn't stop. One evening, he invited me to a gallery opening in Chelsea. It's small, he texted. Just some local artists. I thought you'd like it. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the reply. Going meant crossing a line, admitting I wanted to see him. But I was tired of fighting it. I typed, I'm in. The gallery was a cozy space. Walls lined with vibrant paintings and soft jazz playing in the background. Elliot was waiting outside, wearing a dark blazer that made him look unfairly good. "You came," he said, his smile tentative but genuine. "Don't make a big deal out of it," I teased. But my heart wasn't in the sarcasm. We wandered through the gallery, stopping at each piece, our shoulders brushing as we talked. He asked about my favorite artists, listened when I rambled about color theory, and for the first time, I felt like he saw the kid he'd tormented, but the person I'd become. Halfway through the night, we stopped at a painting of two figures silhouetted against a sunset, their hands almost touching. "This reminds me of us," Elliot said, his voice low. "Close, but not quite there." I turned to him, my pulse racing. "What are we doing, Elliot?" He didn't look away. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I want to find out." The air between us felt electric, like the moment before a storm. I wanted to say something, to push him away or pull him closer. But instead, I just nodded. We left the gallery and walked through the city, the lights of Manhattan casting long shadows. When we stopped at a crosswalk, his hand brushed mine, and this time, I didn't pull away. Back at my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I opened the journal, the one he'd given me, and started writing. Not just one word this time, but everything, every memory of high school, every moment of pain, every flicker of something new. The words poured out, raw and messy, until the pages were filled with the truth I'd been avoiding. I was falling for him. The next day, Mia caught me staring at my phone, waiting for Elliot's next text. "Okay, spill," she said, crossing her arms. "Who's got you smiling like that?" I hesitated, then told her everything: high school, the birthday gift, the dreams, the gallery. Her eyes widened, but she didn't judge. "Caleb," she said, "you're allowed to let go of the past. But be careful. People don't change overnight." Her words stuck with me, a reminder that trust wasn't easy. But when Elliot texted me that night, asking if I wanted to grab dinner, I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I replied, and it felt like a promise to him, to myself, to whatever this was becoming. Dinner was at a small Italian place in the West Village, all candlelight and checkered tablecloths. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing: our jobs, our families, the dreams we'd had as kids. He told me he'd left football behind, that he was working as a counselor for at-risk teens, trying to make a difference. "I didn't want to be the guy who peaked in high school," he said, his eyes distant. "I wanted to be better." I believed him. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. And when he walked me home, stopping outside my building, I felt it again, that pull, like gravity, drawing me to him. "Good night, Caleb," he said, his voice soft. And for a moment, I thought he might lean in. But he didn't, and I was left standing there, my heart a mess of hope and fear. That night, the dream was different. We were back in that park, but this time, he took my hand, his fingers lacing through mine. When I woke, I didn't push the feeling away. I let it settle, warm and terrifying, and wondered how long I could keep pretending this was just a dream. The dreams were relentless now, bleeding into my days. I'd be at work, sketching a logo, and suddenly I'd see Elliot's face, his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. It was maddening, but I didn't want it to stop. We started seeing each other more: coffee here, a walk there, always careful, like we were both afraid of breaking whatever this was. But each time, the walls between us crumbled a little more. I learned things about him I'd never known in high school. How he'd grown up with a father who demanded perfection. How he'd hidden his struggles behind that perfect smile. I was a coward, he told me one night, over beers at a dive bar. I hurt you because I didn't know how to deal with myself. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the grudge. But it was slipping away. You could have just talked to me, I said, instead of making me feel like nothing. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Caleb. The apology wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start. And the more we talked, the more I saw the real Elliot, not the bully, but the person he'd been too afraid to show. One Saturday, he invited me to his place. A small apartment in Queens with bookshelves stuffed to the brim and a view of the skyline. I thought we could cook, he said, holding up a bag of groceries. You like pasta, right? I laughed, surprised he'd remembered. Yeah, but I'm a terrible cook. Good thing I'm not, he said, flashing that grin that still made my heart skip. We spent the afternoon in his tiny kitchen, bumping into each other as we chopped vegetables and boiled water. It was easy, natural, like we'd done it 100 times. When he reached past me for a spoon, his arm brushed mine, and I froze, the air charged with something unspoken. Careful, I said, trying to keep my voice light. You're gonna burn the sauce. He laughed, but his eyes lingered on me, and for a moment, I thought he might close the distance. Instead, he turned back to the stove, stirring the pot with a focus that felt forced. Dinner was messy and perfect. The pasta slightly overcooked, but the company better than I could have imagined. We sat on his couch, plates balanced on our knees, talking about everything except the thing we both felt. When I left, he walked me to the door, his hand hovering near mine. See you soon, he asked, almost shy. Yeah, I said, my voice barely steady. Soon. That night, the dream was so vivid I could feel his breath on my skin, his lips brushing mine. I woke up aching, the journal open on my nightstand. I wrote until dawn, spilling out every fear, every hope, every moment I couldn't say out loud. The next day, Mia cornered me at work. You're in deep, aren't you? She said, her eyes sharp but kind. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. He's not who I thought he was. Then figure it out, she said. But don't lose yourself in the process. Her words echoed as I met Elliot again, this time for a walk along the Hudson. The city was alive around us, but all I could see was him, his jacket pulled tight against the wind, his laugh as he told a story about his kids at the counseling center. When we stopped to watch the sunset, he turned to me, his expression serious. Caleb, he said, I need to tell you something. My heart stopped. What? He took a deep breath. His eyes locked on mine. I'm gay. I've known for years. But I couldn't admit it. Not to myself. Not to anyone. And I think I've always had feelings for you. The world tilted. I'd suspected, pieced it together from his hints. But hearing it out loud was different. It was real. Elliot, I started, but my voice failed me. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I just needed you to know. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just stood there, the river reflecting the last light of the day, and let his words sink in. That night, the dream wasn't just a kiss, it was a confession. A promise. A future I hadn't dared to imagine. And for the first time, I didn't wake up afraid. Elliot's confession changed everything. I couldn't unhear it. Couldn't unfeel the way my heart had leapt when he said those words. But it also terrified me. What did it mean to want someone who'd hurt me so deeply? Could I trust him? Could I trust myself? We kept seeing each other, but there was a new weight to it. A tension that hummed beneath every word, every glance. We'd meet for coffee, or walks, or quiet nights at his place. And each time, I felt myself falling deeper. But I held back, afraid of what it meant to let go. One evening, we ended up at a rooftop bar in Brooklyn, the city sprawling below us like a sea of lights. Elliot was quieter than usual, his fingers tapping nervously on his glass. "You've been distant," he said finally, his eyes searching mine. "Did I scare you off?" "No," I said, too quickly. I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" he asked, leaning closer. "This," I said, gesturing between us. "You. Me. After everything." He nodded, like he understood. "I don't deserve your trust," he said. "I know that. But I'm trying. Caleb. I'm trying to be someone you can believe in." His words hit hard, because I did believe Heimer at least. I wanted to. But the scars from high school weren't gone. They were there, in every hesitation, every time I second-guessed his intentions. "Let's start over," he said suddenly. "No past. No baggage. Just us. Here. Now." I laughed, a little bitter. "You can't just erase the past, Elliot." "I know," he said, his voice soft. "But maybe we can build something new." I didn't have an answer, but when he reached for my hand, I let him take it. His fingers were warm, steady, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. We sat there, hands clasped, watching the city pulse below us. And I felt something shift, a door opening. Just a crack. The dreams that night were softer, less desperate. We were lying in a field somewhere, stars above us, his head resting on my chest. When I woke, I didn't push the image away. I let it linger. Let myself imagine what it would be like to let him in completely. But reality wasn't a dream. The next day, I got a call from my mom, who'd heard through the grapevine that I'd been seen with Elliot. "Caleb," she said, her voice sharp. "Be careful. That boy hurt you. People don't change that much." Her words echoed me and they stung because part of me still agreed. I wanted to believe in Elliot's change, but doubt was a stubborn thing. When I saw him next, at a diner in Midtown, I couldn't shake the unease. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "My mom called," I said, stirring my coffee. "She's not thrilled about us." He winced. "I get it. I've got a lot to make up for." "It's not just that," I said, my voice tight. "It's me. I don't know if I can do this. Elliot, what if you hurt me again?" He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "I won't," he said, his voice fierce. "I swear. Caleb, I'm not that guy anymore." I wanted to believe him, but the fear was louder. We finished our meal in silence, the distance between us growing. When we parted ways, he hugged me, quick and tight, like he was afraid I'd slip away. That night, the dream was different. We were back in high school, but instead of taunts, Elliot was smiling, holding out his hand, I woke up crying. The journal opened beside me. I wrote until my hand ached, trying to untangle the mess of my heart. The next day, I made a decision. I texted Elliot, "Meet me at the park. We need to talk." I didn't know what I was going to say, but I knew I couldn't keep running from this. From him. From myself. The park was quiet. The late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. Elliot was already there, sitting on a bench, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He looked up as I approached, his eyes hopeful but guarded. "Caleb," he said, standing. "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. I sat on the bench, motioning for him to join me. For a long time, we just sat there, the sounds of the city humming around us. Finally, I spoke. "I'm scared," I said. "I'm scared of what this means, of what you mean to me." He nodded, like he'd been expecting it. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I've spent years running from this, from who I am. But I'm done running." His words hit me hard, because they echoed my own. I'd been running too from the past, from the pain, from the possibility of something real. "What do you want, Elliot?" I asked. "Really?" He turned to me, his eyes steady. "I want you," he said simply. "I want a chance to make things right. To be with you, if you'll let me." My heart stuttered. I'd spent so long hating him, blaming him. But now, all I could see was the man in front of me, flawed, honest, trying. "I don't know if I can trust you," I said, my voice breaking. "But I want to try." He reached for my hand, and this time, I let him take it. His fingers were warm, grounding, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. "We'll go slow," he said. "No pressure. Just us." We stayed there until the sun dipped below the horizon, talking about nothing and everything. When we finally stood to leave, he hesitated, then leaned in, his lips brushing my cheek. It was soft, tentative, but it sent a spark through me, like the first note of a song I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. That night, the dream was a memory's kiss on my cheek, replayed over and over, each time bolder, sweeter. I woke up smiling. The journal opened beside me. I wrote one sentence: "I'm not afraid anymore." The next few weeks were a blur of moments, small, perfect moments that felt like promises. We'd meet after work, share takeout, watch old movies on his couch. Each time, the distance between us shrank, until one night, as we sat shoulder to shoulder, he turned to me and said, "Caleb, can I kiss you?" My heart stopped, but I nodded, and when his lips met mine, it was nothing like the dreams. It was better, real, warm, a little clumsy but perfect. When we pulled back, he was smiling, and so was I. But life wasn't a dream. The next day, I got an email from an old high school friend, someone who'd seen us together. "Be careful with Elliot," it read. "He's got a reputation." The words hit like a punch, dragging up every doubt I'd tried to bury. Was this real? Or was I just another chapter in his redemption story? I didn't tell Elliot about the email, but it lingered, a shadow over every moment. When we met next, I was quieter, and he noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. I hesitated, then showed him the email. His face fell, but he didn't look away. "I can't change what people think," he said, "but I can show you who I am now, if you'll let me." I didn't know what to believe, but I knew I didn't want to lose him. Not yet. So I nodded, and he pulled me into a hug, his arms steady around me. That night, the dream was a promisee of future where we were enough, just as we were. The email haunted me, but I pushed it down, focusing on the moments with Elliot. We were building something real, something fragile but beautiful. Still, doubt was a stubborn guest, whispering in the quiet moments. One night, we went to a concert in Central Park. Some indie band neither of us knew well but wanted to hear. The crowd was alive, pulsing with energy, and Elliot was right there beside me, his hand in mine. When the band played a slow song, he pulled me close, and we swayed together, the world fading away. "You're thinking too much," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. I laughed, because he was right. "How do you know?" "Because I know you," he said, and the simplicity of it stole my breath. After the concert, we walked through the park, the stars bright above us. "I'm falling for you, Caleb," he said suddenly, stopping under a tree. "And it scares the hell out of me." I froze, my heart racing. "Me too," I admitted. "But I don't want to stop." He kissed me then, under the stars, and it was everything the dreams had promised and more. When we pulled back, I felt like I could finally breathe, like I'd been holding my breath for years. But the next day, reality crashed in. I ran into an old classmate at a coffee shop, someone who'd been friends with Elliot in high school. "Heard you're with Elliot Harper," she said, her tone sharp. "Hope you know what you're getting into." Her words cut deep, stirring up the doubts I'd tried to bury. I didn't tell Elliot, but when we met later, he could tell something was wrong. "Talk to me," he said, his eyes searching mine. I told him about the encounter, the warnings, the fear that I was making a mistake. He listened, his face tight with emotion. "I can't change my past," he said. "But I'm here. Caleb. I'm all in." I wanted to believe him, but the doubts were loud. That night, the dream was different, fractured, uncertain, with Elliot slipping away from me. I woke up gasping, the journal open beside me. I wrote until my hand hurt, trying to make sense of it all. The next day, I made a choice. I invited Elliot to my place, determined to face the truth. When he arrived, I didn't hold back. "I need to know," I said. "Is this real? Or am I just fixing something for you?" He looked at me, his eyes raw. "This is real," he said. "You're not fixing me, Caleb. You're showing me who I can be." His words broke something open in me, and I kissed him, hard and desperate, like I could hold on to him forever. When we pulled back, he was smiling, tears in his eyes. "I love you," he said, and it was the most honest thing I'd ever heard. I didn't say it back. Not yet. But I felt it, deep and terrifying and true. That night, the dream was a homey, a place where we were safe, together, no matter what anyone else said. The dreams never stopped, but they weren't just dreams anymore. They were a map, guiding me towards something I'd never thought possible. Elliot and I were building a life, piece by piece, and it was messy and scary and perfect. But the world wasn't always kind. We'd get looks sometimes, holding hands in public, and I'd hear whispers from people who knew our history. "Elliot Harper. Really?" they'd say, like I was a fool for believing in him. Each time, it stung, but I'd look at Elliot, at the way he'd squeeze my hand, and I'd know I'd made the right choice. One day, we went back to the park where it all started, where he'd given me the journal. It was my 26th birthday, a year since that rainy night. He'd planned a picnic, complete with my favorite sandwiches and a playlist of songs we'd discovered together. As we sat on a blanket, the sun warm on our faces, he pulled out a small box. Not another journal, I teased, but my heart was racing. He laughed, shaking his head. Open it. Inside was a simple silver ring, engraved with our initials. It's not a proposal, he said quickly, his cheeks pink. It's a promise that I'm here for as long as you'll have me. I didn't know what to say, so I kissed him, soft and slow, the way I'd dreamed so many times. When we pulled back, I slipped the ring on my finger, and it felt like a piece of the future clicking into place. I love you, I said, the words finally free. He smiled, his eyes bright with tears. I love you too. That night, we went back to my apartment, the journal open on my nightstand. I'd filled it with our story, every fight, every kiss, every moment that had brought us here. As we lay together, his head on my chest, I realized something. The dreams weren't just about kissing him. They were about building something real, something worth fighting for. The road hadn't been easy. There were still doubts, still moments when the past crept in. But we faced them together, hand in hand, and that made all the difference. The next morning, I woke to find Elliot watching me, his smile soft and sure. What? I asked, my voice thick with sleep. Just thinking, he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. About how I remembered your birthday, and it changed everything. I laughed, pulling him close. Yeah, I said. It really did. And as we lay there, the city waking up around us, I knew this was only the beginning. The dreams had led me here, to a love I'd never expected, to a future I'd never dared to imagine. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to dream again.